It being 6 o'clock, I am calling to order the Select Board meeting of April 7th, 2025. If you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. So first up, we have some public announcements. Pat Maloney is on Zoom tonight. Pat, are you going to do the public announcements?
I am going to do the public announcements and just let everybody know that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live for those of everybody at home. So
Thanks,
I will
Pat.
start with a proclamation this evening. So, Town of Chelmsford proclamation in honor of Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day, April 24th, 2025. Whereas Armenians fled oppression from the Ottoman government during the 20th century, coming to America in search of freedom where they could live in dignity without fear and oppression, and whereas, like many ethnic groups, Armenians settled in Chelmsford seeking a safe place to live, raise their families, practice their religion, and educate their children. They became an asset to the growth and vitality of the town of Chelmsford through their strong work ethic, family values, and civic pride. And whereas the Armenian community of Chelmsford is comprised of the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of the survivors of the Armenian genocide, and whereas 1.5 million Armenian men, women, and children, victims of genocide, perished in the Ottoman Empire from 1915 to 1923. Now, therefore, the Chelmsford Select Board does hereby issue this proclamation in remembrance of the Armenian genocide of 1915 and urge all residents to take part in this observance. Signed this 7th day of April 2025, the Chelmsford Select Board and Patricia E. Duras, Town Clerk.
And
Some notices from the Chelmsford Health Department.
Pat, can I just hold up for 1 second? I think we have somebody here to accept the proclamation.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
gonna let
sorry.
them come up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Ara Jeknavorian, residing at 4 Percheron Road in Chelmsford, and I'm here representing the Armenian American community of Chelmsford. I'm joined here this evening with my fellow residents of Armenian heritage, essentially all of which are the children and grandchildren of a survivor of the Armenian genocide. The Armenian American community of Chelmsford extends its heartfelt appreciation to the Select Board for helping us remind town residents of the Armenian genocide, which, perpetrated by the Turkish Ottoman Empire, claimed the lives of over 1.5 million Armenian women, children, from 1915 to 1923. Considering that the Armenian genocide is often regarded as a forgotten genocide, most tragically, it became the prototype of the genocides and holocausts that followed and are still actively taking place today. In 1939, some 20 years after the Armenian genocide, Hitler was about to invade Poland and wipe out all the Jews throughout Europe. And his advisor said, Adolf, you can't walk in and kill all those people. And what did Hitler say? Who now remembers the Armenians? Chelmsford has always been a welcoming community to Armenians fleeing oppression in different parts of the world. We are blessed to have our beautiful house of worship, St. Bartholomew's Armenian Church on Old Westford Road, 180 Old Westford Road, and with Father Khachadur Kesabian as our pastor, who continues to welcome with open arms those Armenians who today continue to flee tyranny and oppression in many Middle East countries, and especially Azerbaijan, which has recently attempted the ethnic cleansing over 120,000 Armenians. We are grateful to have today 2 of our most senior members of the community, Steve Dugarian at 91 years old, and George Simonian, who of course is no stranger to many people here. In fact, George reminded me that he taught high school here when it was a high school back in the 50s. George is the oldest living Armenian here in Chelmsford at the beautiful age of 96, soon to be 97, and is here today because his mother and my father escaped the Armenian genocide miraculously, jumped on a boat, and came to Ellis Island in 1918. Otherwise, it would be history. With today's proclamation, let us not only honor the hallowed memory of the men, women, and children who perished during the Armenian genocide, but also embrace the virtues of love, tolerance, and mutual respect for all peoples of this blessed world. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I can take the picture. Do you want me to grab you a chair to sit? Okay. You sure you don't want a chair? Sorry. We can't.
No, just stand here. I am tall enough.
Oh, that one. Put your head on the feet.
Don't worry, George, I'm only 78. Oh, this is good. Get another one. Okay.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. So sorry I couldn't be there to join you tonight.
It was a pleasure. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rose.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hey, Pat, I think you can continue now if you'd like.
Okay. Some notices from the Chelmsford Health Department, upcoming free events. The first one is Hoarding 101 Community Class on May 20th from 5:30 to 6:30 at the Chelmsford Public Library. This informative session on hoarding designed for community members, family, and friends who want to learn more about hoarding behaviors. The next thing is Save a Life with Opioid Overdose Response Training on April 30th from 3:30 to 4 at the Chelmsford Town Hall Fire Training Room. Learn how to recognize and respond to an overdose. The next one is Sexually Transmitted Infections in Older Adults. That was actually today from 1 to 2 o'clock at the Chelmsford Senior Center, so we've missed that one. And then the final one is Community Adult and Child CPR First Aid and AED class on May 21st from 9 to 1 at Chelmsford Town Hall Fire Training Room. Each participant will, who completes this 4-hour training, will obtain an American Heart Association Heart Saver CPR AED First Aid certificate that is valid for 2 years. Please note that there is a $20 fee for the card. Under free services from the Chelmsford Health Department, the Massachusetts Behavioral Health Helpline, available 24/7, 365 days a year, providing free and confidential support for mental health and substance abuse concerns. You can call or text 833-773-2445 or chat online at masshelpline.com. Sober Karaoke takes place every second Friday of the month from 7 to 10 at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts in the Cabaret Room. It's free admission, snacks and mocktails available for purchase. And the final is a blood pressure screening, first Thursday of the month, 9 to 12, at the Chelmsford Health Department. Last Thursday of the month, 8:30 to 10:30, we're at Chelmsford Senior Center. So those are free services provided by the Chelmsford Health Department. As some updates, the Chelmsford Health Department joined the Regional Preparedness Action Workshop with police, fire, and emergency management professionals and other health departments to provide preparedness training. Other updates, they've joined they've been invited to join NACCHO's Maternal and Child Health Policy Innovation Program Learning Community. This opportunity focuses on policy development and implementation to improve access to care, nutrition, and food security for maternal and child health. CPR classes are also filling up fast. Don't miss your chance to learn life-saving skills from certified instructors. Whether a beginner or just looking to refresh your knowledge, classes are perfect for everybody. And they also want to note that the 4th annual Fall Festival is excited. Chelmsford Health Department is excited to announce that planning our 4th Fall Festival is in full swing. This beloved community event promises fun, food, and festivities for all ages. We are now accepting vendor applications, so if you're interested, don't miss this opportunity to be part of this celebration. The next notice is under the Housing Production Plan Virtual Forum. That will take place tomorrow, Tuesday, April 8th, 4:30 p.m. online. I will give you a website to go to, which is https://nimcog.org/CHELM-HPP. And that will get you to registration and get you to the forum on the housing production plan that is so vital to our community. The next notice is from Chelmsford Friends of the Library. Their annual book sale is Friday, April 11th from 9 to 7:30 p.m., 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., and Saturday, April 12th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Large selection of fiction, nonfiction, children's books, DVDs and CDs. Members only can go on Thursday, April 10th from 5 to 7:30. Lower crowds and best selection. Join the Friends of the Library to attend. Again, that's the Chelmsford Library annual book sale. The next notice is Join Chelmsford's Townwide Cleanup, April 19th to April 27th, 2025. Pick up yellow bags at DPW 9 Alpha Road between April 14th and April 25th. Place yellow bags at your home curbside for pickup with the regular trash until Friday, May 2nd. Together we can keep Chelmsford a clean and litter-free place to work, live, and play. Any questions? Contact Sustainability Manager Chris Haley at 978-250-5203. And the Chelmsford Minuteman Company invites the public to join them on their 14th and final Patriots Day March from Chelmsford to Concord. Join the Chelmsford Minutemen, Scouts, and fellow citizens on our 250th anniversary, reliving the fateful day of April 19th, 1775, that thrust the colonies into the start of the American Revolution. Chelmsford Minutemen will be in full outfit, complete with muskets and accoutrements, outfitted like our town sires were in 1775. Scouts will receive the rare Chelmsford Trail to Concord Patch. Again, that date is Patriots Day holiday, Saturday, April 19th. Step-off time is 4 a.m. at the Sundial on the Chelmsford Common, and it will end at 9 a.m. at the Old North Bridge in Concord. And again, that's the Chelmsford Minutemen last march to Concord. We have another proclamation. Town of Chelmsford proclamation in celebration of Arbor Day, April 25th, 2025. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and beautify our community. And whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of the business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, we, the Chelmsford Select Board, do hereby proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the town of Chelmsford and urge all its citizens to protect our trees and woodlands and to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations, to take part in programs to celebrate Arbor Day. Presented this 7th day of April 2025 by the Chelmsford Select Board and the town clerk. Next notice is spring annual town meeting. The spring annual town meeting will convene at 7:30 on Monday, April 28th at the Senior Center at 75 Groton Road. A copy of the spring annual town meeting warrant is available now on the town's website. Any resident of the town who is not an elected town meeting member may attend sessions of the town meeting and participate in question and answers and discussion portions of the proceedings. Links to the town meeting presentation document and Finance Committee's warrant book can be found on town meeting webpage at least 1 week prior to town meeting. And our final notice is we want to hear from you, funded by the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program for the town of Chelmsford. I'm going to give you another website, and that is https://tinyurl.com/Chelm project. And go there to see how you can help out, and they want to hear from you. And that's it for notices this evening.
So, Aaron, if I could just, for my last time ever, obviously, remind everyone that newly elected select board members are required to go along with the march from Chelmsford to Concord on Patriots Day.
I heard that.
I missed that a couple of years ago myself, actually.
Put me in a golf cart and I'll play a drum. I mean,
Thank you,
very
Pat.
much for that reminder, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Pat and Pat. Next, we have general public input. Do we have anyone who wants to speak during the public input session?
Nobody on Zoom.
No. Okay, Pat, if you'd like to do the committee vacancies?
Absolutely. Committee vacancies as of 4/7/2025. There is Agricultural Commission. There is one unexpired 3-year term ending on 6/30/2026. On the Commission on Disabilities, there is one unexpired 3-year term ending on 6/30/2025. One unexpired 3-year term ending on 6/30/2026. And 2 3-year terms ending on 6/30/2027. The Council on Aging Board has one unexpired 3-year term ending 6/30/2025. The Conservation Commission has one unexpired 3-year term ending on 6/30/2025. Historic District Commission alternate member has one 3-year term ending 6/30/2027. The Holiday Decorating Committee has 2 unexpired 1-year terms ending 12/31/2025. The Parade Committee welcomes all applicants 1-year terms ending 7/31/2025. And the Recycling Committee has one unexpired 3-year term ending 6/30/2026. If you're interested in serving on a town board or committee, please complete an online application available on the town website or contact the town manager's office at 978-250-5202.
Thanks, Pat. That's the shortest committee vacancies list I think I've ever seen, which is really, really great, actually.
I agree.
Yeah, so next up we have reports and presentations. And the first thing on the list here is the select board recommendations on spring annual town meeting warrant articles.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we have 34 articles on the warrant for the spring annual town meeting, which begins 3 weeks from tonight. The board is meeting again next week, so if there's any items that we have to follow up upon, and there's a couple articles that are still pending that we're working on regarding adjustments to the current year's budget and contract settlements. But what we traditionally do in this situation is we'll allow those guests who are here to take their articles out of order, to allow them to go home and enjoy the rest of their evening while we slog through the other, balance of the articles. And so first we have Mary Donovan and her at the back of the room presenting Article 20. Yeah, we'll find it. Article regarding the pet cemetery.
27
regarding the pet cemetery. So we'll pull that up.
Hi, Mary.
Good evening. My name is Mary Donovan. I live in Chelmsford,
Here we are.
and I wish to thank the Select Board for inviting me to speak on the need for a pet cemetery in town. A pet cemetery run like the Chelmsford human cemeteries would be a safe, legal resting place for one's pets forever. Pets are family, are children, and should be treated the same as humans in their time of death. A pet cemetery would not cost the town or taxpayers. Pet owners would be responsible for cost of the burials, such as burial lots, opening of lots, caskets, markers, and a maintenance fee. The maintenance fee goes into an endowment account for maintaining the cemetery. A pet cemetery is a place where you can always visit to share memories with family, friends, with safety, security for an eternity. A law in the 1950 or so on human burials were to be in a cemetery. Burials of humans and pets were always buried on your land. A law was then passed, humans to be buried in a human cemetery. No mention of pets, except now it is illegal to bury pets in your yard. I have papers telling costs, price, and what it is. The only difference between a human burial and a dog burial, you have to, hire a funeral director. You don't. The parents, the family of pets do it. Please, we need to add a pet cemetery in town. Please, vote for it. I thank you. And I do have a law right now in the legislature, hoping it will get voted on to protect pet cemeteries, because there is no law in the state of Massachusetts to protect a pet cemetery. As you can see, one has been sold in the area around here, and our two-family house has been built on part of it, over 1,000 pets. Thank you, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. But please forgive me, I'm a little deaf, so you'll have to speak loud.
Does anyone have any questions? for
Mary, did you reach out to the Pet Loss Professional Association
speak
like
a
I
little
suggested?
louder?
Did you reach out to the Pet Loss Association like I suggested? You and I spoke on the phone a while back. I don't know.
I have been reaching out to just about everybody, and it seems like none of them call me back.
Okay, well, I'll be seeing them at the end of the month. I'll be seeing that group at the end of the month, and I'll ask them why they haven't
Oh my
responded.
God, I feel bad. I
Jeff,
can't
if you
do
speak into your microphone, I think she'll be able to hear
I'll
you.
be seeing them at the end of the month, and I'll find out why they haven't responded.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? And if you need.
Can I ask a question, actually, Mary? I'm curious. What are the fees?
This is where my 6 pets are buried right now.
Mary, what are the fees like if somebody wants to bury their pet in the pet cemetery?
Sorry, what?
It says your warrant article says that there's a collection of fees by the town for the use of the land and maintenance. What are the fees like if someone wants to bury their pet in the cemetery?
Do you mind if I come a little closer? I didn't
Yeah.
hear you.
Sorry, I thought the microphone would help, but I'm wondering the fees. The fees associated?
If what?
The fees. If you want to bury your pet in the cemetery, what kind of fees do you think it will be? How much do you think it will be?
It costs me.
She has to go to the mic.
You have to go to the microphone. I'm sorry, Mary.
Otherwise, nobody at home's gonna hear her.
Sorry.
Maybe in the room, too.
Cost me, oh. For your information, here's the pictures of what it costs for caskets. You can pay a 20-inch for $75 or a 52-inch for $350. It costs $199 to open the grave. To buy the plot was $500 to $600 each time you put one in. Then if you buy a marker, which is good, they're all the same markers, the same, my God, I got so many. I didn't expect that question, so I kind of got them mixed up.
Sorry, I'm just curious. You can just ballpark it if you know off the top of your
They're
head, like
square,
$1,000.
Just a plain square with the names on them. And that costs only about $200, maybe $300.
Okay.
And then you pay a maintenance fee.
Yeah.
You can, each time I put a dog in there,
Yeah.
my maintenance fee goes up.
How much is the maintenance fee?
Sorry?
How much is the maintenance fee?
Well, right now, I'm paying nothing because of what's going on up there. The fella is hoping that we'll take our pets out and he
Okay.
can build more houses on it. So I pay over $250 a month,
Okay.
and I pay it every month.
Okay.
And I
Thank
pay
you.
it from the day they go in, and I keep paying it.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you. That's
And it's
okay.
worth
Thank
it.
you. Okay.
Because it goes into the endowment, and I know the grass will never look like this.
Okay. Thank you. Does
And I
anyone else
will
have
be
any?
more than happy. If you want this stuff in printed writing, I will give it to you.
Okay.
And I don't want to have to pick up my pets to dig them up because my only alternative, sorry, is my backyard. And I got 6 of them. And 2 more waiting on a counter at home.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
By the way, the town would make money. It wouldn't cost them.
The next presentation would be Article.
Are we gonna vote
You want
on
to vote
these
now, or do you want to vote
as
at
we
the
go
end?
through them?
How do you want to do
Oh, we
this?
probably.
Do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it at the end of the evening? It's up to you.
Why don't we let Kelly, I'm assuming Kelly's gonna be.
Yeah, then you're
out.
going to hear from Chris LaValle and then
Oh,
others.
okay.
Well, yeah,
so
no,
we've
but
got-
the question is, do we want to go through all of the
I just-
article items and then vote?
As Paul said, I think it's best to let the people who are here to speak, let
Yeah.
them speak.
Right, and I think.
No, but I also think if we vote, then they can leave. Is kind of so like if we just give Mary how we're voting now, and that's all she wants to stay for, then she's able to leave, and then the next person can speak. We can go through them one by one and vote as we speak about each one, or we can go through them all and vote on all of them at the end, which is, but then people have to sit and wait longer, you know. So yeah, I'm inclined to just vote now, if that's okay.
Yeah, I would
Does that
prefer
make
that,
sense?
and then we don't have to re-litigate them,
Yeah,
re-debate them when we
Yeah.
get to them again.
yeah, I'm okay with that.
May I make a comment? Jerry Hardy,
Sure. Can you, if you want to
Sure.
come up? Can I?
I was a cemetery commissioner for about 45 years. I'll get over it.
Is this? I'm sorry. Is this?
There
Is
is
this? I'm
some
s-
pushback
okay.
by the lot owners in the regular human cemeteries of having a animal cemetery within the cemeteries. And I think if you want to pursue this, and I'm agreeing with her 100%, you'll have to find a spot in Chelmsford which is separate from the human cemeteries, because we've considered this on the board a number of times, and some of the lot owners are a little against this. So before you vote, I think you should consider whether there's a place in Chelmsford that you can put a pet cemetery that isn't on a bunch of rock. Now, I thought it would be great to go out to Ledge Avenue, and then they told me it was all rock out there, all ledge, so that wasn't going to work. But I think you should consider a separate location for the pet cemetery.
Well, I think that's what it says in the article. It says to obtain a town-owned parcel of land, so
Yeah.
that's the purpose of the article.
Yeah,
And
so
it
what-
doesn't specify where
what
it
would
is.
We
have
haven't
to have-
identified.
This
a
is
part
almost
of
like
it.
a resolution from town meeting. In other words, if this were to pass a town meeting, then myself and the board would come back at a future town meeting with a particular parcel of land and a plan on how to implement it. So that's what would come out of this vote, because obviously at this point, it doesn't identify the parcel of land and how it would.
Do we have any like financial projections about how what the fees would be
No.
or anything like
No.
that? We don't.
No, the only town that we know that runs a cemetery is Littleton, and it's not very active. So, and the only other thing I can report to the board that the Finance Committee's recommendation on this article was 0 in favor, 6 opposed, 1 abstention.
Okay.
And policies would have to identify or obtain. Obtain would indicate that
Yeah.
we might have to buy something.
Yeah, well, you can't buy anything without town meeting approval,
Right,
so you'd have to come
so-
back with a proposed location, and if it were not already town-owned, and the issue is you cannot use cemetery land,
Right.
and you cannot use conservation land, and you cannot use community preservation money to acquire it. And so the only parcel of town-owned land that the town has of any significance at this point that's not conservation or school or cemetery is really 50 Richardson Road. But as you know, that's near the aquifer and that's where the dog park is.
Right.
But that's but adjacent to the aquifer for the North Chelmsford Water District wells.
So it might be a struggle to find a parcel anyways.
Or again, we'd have to identify and then bring it back to the town for approval.
Well, my concern is seeing
funding.
what happened in Tingsboro. I don't want to see that happen in Chelmsford.
Move your mic.
I just don't want to see what happened in Tingsboro happen in Chelmsford in 10 years. Tingsboro created their own mess, and it's not our responsibility to fix their mess. I mean, that's what they've done. And as I mentioned earlier to Mary, I said there's a group out there, the Pet Loss Professional Association, that would look into this stuff, what's going on in Tingsboro. And I just being a cemetery commissioner over the past few years, I've been in the industry my entire life, and as Paul mentioned, the pet cemetery that's adjacent to the back of West Lawn Cemetery in Littleton is not very active. They had some people that were all gung ho to get it done, but nobody's putting their pets there. So now you have the cemetery that's going to have to continue to maintain more property, and our cemetery division cannot take on any more properties. They're already maintaining 6 cemeteries in town, and 2 of which are not active. So they have plenty of work as it currently stands. So, I mean, if a solid piece of land can be brought forth, and you could definitely have some kind of definitive financing and perpetuity as far as maintaining, then I think I'd be more in favor of it under those circumstances. But just to grab a piece of land and say, we're going to do this, I just don't think is a smart move at this point. That's just my opinion.
I mean, I think, as a courtesy to Mary, I mean, she's been working on this, she's been pushing this for years now. I would favor this article the way it's written, because it doesn't say we'd use it as part, it doesn't say the Cemetery Commission would manage or monitor it, and it doesn't say it'd be part of any of our cemeteries, because as Paul said, it can't be. But I don't have an issue with us doing some research to find out if there is something and how it would work, and go forward with that. If the answer turns out to be no, then I would hope that Mary would accept that, but I don't have a problem with doing what it says in this warrant article to do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with, as a pet owner myself, Pat, I agree with you. It doesn't make any commitment to us other than to consider the article. Again, based on what Paul said, I think we're gonna run into a problem finding a location. And I think if it gets a town meeting and they approve it, then we can take a deeper dive. Because I wholeheartedly agree with Jeff. People are gonna have to pay a monthly fee, and somebody's gonna have to maintain it, and seeing structure around that would be helpful. So it's just it doesn't become unused. So, I'm kind of leaning towards where you are, Pat.
Pat Maloney, do you have anything you'd like to share?
No. Ready to make a motion?
Okay. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to, for the select board to support Article 27, Happy Tales Pet Cemetery, as submitted and presented.
Okay, and this is going to be a roll call vote because,
Second.
oh, do you second?
I'll second it.
And this is going to be a roll call vote because we have a member on Zoom. So Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Nay.
Jeff,
No.
Aaron,
Yes.
and I'm a nay. So the motion
3 to 2.
fails with,
Recommend against 2 to 3. Yeah.
it fails to be, how do I state this? It
If
fails,
the motion fails.
the motion fails with
Yeah.
2 in favor and 3 opposed. Thank you.
All right, the next article is Article 29. We have Kelly Beatty's here. This is for the lighting bylaw. And then there's an accompanying.
It's
sorry.
Article
Article,
30
I'm
on this list.
anyway, it's the lighting bylaw.
Oh, I
No,
have
there's
29.
two.
The
There's two.
slide
One's a
is-
Oh,
zoning.
you're right.
One's a zoning and one's a general, and Article 29 is a general bylaw. And if that were to be approved, then action would take place on Article 30, which would be to rescind or modify technically the zoning bylaw. So, There's Kelly Beatty, and then Crystal Valley is here as well.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here this evening.
Oh, get to your presentation.
As background, as Paul's scrolling through, let me just tell you that we've had an outdoor lighting bylaw on the books for a quarter of a century. In 2000, the town meeting voted unanimously in favor of what we have now, which is a zoning bylaw. It was very basic, but one of the first for its time. It basically said if your light is too above a certain brightness, it needs to be pointed down. And that was a solid way to go for its time. There were some exemptions. But the problem has been that in that time since then, Paul, you can flip to the next one, a lot has changed, and in particular the advent of LEDs, which are very powerful and useful light sources, but they are very different than what we had to deal with in the year 2000. And in particular, they are used widely and very strongly in a lot of circumstances around town, both for residences and for businesses and for the town itself. And the problem is that unless these are pointed down, and most are not, then they're already in violation of the existing bylaw. But since that's a complaint-driven bylaw with very few specifics and no vehicle for enforcement, it has not been called into play very often. So one of the things that has changed besides the advent of LED is that lighting science now understands that one of the big concerns is glare, the glare from fixtures. If you want to flip, Paul, thank you, to the next one. This will give you a sense of what glare is. It's light that does go below horizontal, but it hits you in the face. And I have no better example than you've all driven down the street and some car is coming with its headlights on bright, and it's almost debilitating for you trying to see your way on the road from these bright light sources. So glare has become kind of the catchphrase for trying to control lighting in current best practices. And so, go ahead, Paul, you can
Next
flip
one?
to the
Okay.
next one. This is an example of how you would control glare. This is not in Chelmsford, although I hope to have a good example in time for town meeting. This is on Nantucket. This is a school. You can see the glare from the fixtures on the side of the building. And Nantucket passed a lighting ordinance to try to control this. And what they did in this particular case is just point the lights down. Next, Paul. And this was the result. Very nice, even illumination. No glare in your eye. You can see everything that's in the field of view. Please, the next one, Paul.
Okay.
I'm trying to get through this
No, it's
quickly.
okay. Just follow your lead.
Just follow my lead. Next. Another concept that is relatively new, but I think we've had some experience with it, is the notion of color temperature. It's a number that tells you how much blue light is in the bulb you're using. The higher that number, it's an actual temperature, the bluer the light. And so these days, the amount of a typical bulb for household use is about a 4,000 Kelvin to 3,000 Kelvin. The lower the number, the less blue light. And blue light at night is environmentally... Can you
Mr.
take that
Harrington.
outside, please?
Mr. Harrington, John.
I'll continue.
Can't hear you. Speak up.
Mr. Harrington, could you take your call outside?
Okay. Kind of lost my train of thought. Blue light is really a problem at night on many, many different levels. From the standpoint of nocturnal wildlife, human circadian rhythm, like whether you can stay awake during the day because you couldn't get good sleep at night. And so the less blue light we have in our our nighttime environment, the better. And that's one of the things that we're trying to get a grasp on with this new bylaw. Go ahead, Paul, next. We are all familiar with this color temperature. It's now on all the bulbs that we buy. You might have remembered it back in the day being called warm white or cool white, but now there's an actual number that we can associate with it. And in best practice, our town street lights, for example, are 4,000 Kelvin, actually a little warmer than that, and they're actually quite good in terms of control and reducing glare. This is the street lights. After that, other lights that we have in town, municipal, commercial, residential, are maybe not so good. Next, please. So what will this bylaw do? First of all, it creates let me explain why we're going for a general bylaw instead of an update to the zoning bylaw. A general bylaw will allow us a couple of things. First of all, it would bring under the umbrella of regulation the town's lighting, utilities lighting, and fixtures that hadn't been in play before. The second thing is it allows us to do something with all of the lights over the last 25 years that have been installed that weren't complying with the existing bylaw, which is once this bylaw is enacted, then all of those lights become non-conforming. Now, I don't expect people to change them out overnight to become conforming. One of the components of this is what we call a sunset clause for 10 years. So you would have 10 years to take your bad light and make it a good one. And in many cases, doing that is simply taking the light and pointing it down, and that's all you would have to do. Certainly for everyday lighting in our homes, in most cases, like your porch light would be okay as is because it's not bright enough to be triggered by this bylaw. So this sunset clause, I say it lasts 10 years. The lifetime of LEDs is of order 20 years. And so, for example, our town street lights were installed 12 years ago, more or less. And in my discussions with Christine Clancy, there is a long-term plan to replace the lighting that is here in our street lights, as well as some of the lighting that's around our municipal buildings. You may recall that it was a energy services contract with Johnson Controls that led to the installation of the street lights and the area lighting that we have. They did a great job with the street lights. They did a not so great job with the lighting around the municipal buildings. And so one final thing I want to mention is that, as I said, the existing bylaw is vague and completely unenforceable, and there is no mechanism for enforcement. So the bylaw that I'm proposing with the planning board would create a position called lighting standards officer. This is not a new hire. It's not even a part-time hire. It would be somebody appointed probably within the building inspector's office to be responsible for complaints when they come in. And of course, most of the time a complaint is going to come in at night, and so I wouldn't expect the lighting in the building officer to go out, as is the case now. Probably would be a public safety person goes out and makes the first determination. What's really important is that now we have defined numerically with standards, best practice standards, what a nuisance would be. So if one neighbor was complaining about another neighbor, or if you didn't like the lights from a mall that was next to your property, you would have a way, a quantifiable way, a measurable way to determine whether that lighting was in compliance or not. And as far as the homeowner is concerned, really nothing has changed. It's still the case that if you have a light above a certain brightness, it needs to be pointed down. In early versions of this, and I've had many good discussions with stakeholders around the town, not only with the town managers, the department managers, but also the Chelmsford Business Association, the various conservation boards, the planning board, of course. And so we're hoping that this represents a good compromise, something that the town can get behind. And as I said, it's not going to be something that's going to reflect a need for change overnight. Already the planning board is applying standards like this when new projects come into town. And what we're going to do, what we hope to do is to gradually rein in some of the existing lighting that we have to make it a little bit more, make the glare, when the glare is reduced, you can actually see better, your security is better. Thank you very much. I'll leave it at that. Chris?
I just wanted,
Thank you. I was just going to say, can somebody? Chris, you can go ahead if you'd like.
I just wanted to add that the planning board has had a lot of discussions with Kelly, and we've made some adjustments with him. But if this does go forward, we do see it as a positive step in the right direction, because this does provide the enforcement and complaint-driven process with standards that can be applied in those cases.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
I don't have any questions, Kelly. I really like the idea of the 10-year buffer, where if people are in violation, so to speak, gives them time to try to discuss it and figure out ways they can make it better. So I think that sunset clause is crucial here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, for somebody that likes to look at the night sky or break out the telescope. I often have complaints with light pollution, but I also live near a bigger city. And I agree with Jeff, the sunset clause is important. What I worry about with these things is just some of the unintended consequences. And one of the first things that comes to mind is people that have light complaints now are going to have, they're going to go up more. And I just want to make sure that we don't unintendedly create burden via complaints would be the thing that really pops into mind. And again, I think as long as we're not driving costs to people, especially today, to make these changes to conform, then in principle, I think what you're trying to do is overall the right thing to do. And I noticed one of the things back there, in particular with stadium lighting. I do think that that's something that if there's new practices today, that as new things get built or things get be replaced, then having those standards is good, because that does create a tremendous amount of light pollution that you can see from everywhere. So other than that, I don't have any other questions at the moment.
Pat?
Well, I think everybody recognizes Kelly as our lighting expert in town, so.
But I have not, but thank you.
So he knows this a lot better than I do, and I respect his taking the time to bring this forward. I know it is a long time coming. I know you've been working on it for quite some time. And, given the 10-year time frame, as has been mentioned, that allows for some time, not just for people to conform, but also if there is something in it that we discover has unintended consequences, we have time to adjust it. So, and I'm sure that would happen if something like that does happen.
If I may address that, Pat, this notion of color temperature, it's been a moving target for like the last 10 years. When the town installed its streetlights, it had a choice of two, 5,700 Kelvin, which would be very obnoxiously blue, or 4,000. Today, even 3,000 or 2,700 is not what is happening. If you go to Pepperell, they replaced their streetlights with 2,200 Kelvin, which is kind of like the peachy color, high-pressure sodium lights that we've all become accustomed to, but now they have LED streetlights. So one of the things we've had a discussion with on the planning board is that maybe this would be now revisited in, say, 5 years, halfway through the sunset clause period, see where we stand, and tweak as necessary.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
Sorry, one other thing. Kelly, the photo you showed that they did, I think you said it was Nantucket. That was simply an adjustment they made by re-angling the lights, right?
That is correct. They didn't replace them.
So there's, being the town expert on this, are there areas where you know of in town that we can do some of these simple things like this and make a difference that you can think of?
Yes, I would say for starters, I don't want to put work on anybody, but like businesses that have installed LED lights that are on a pivot, they are easily redirected. And often if you have an LED that's on the side of your building and you're attempting to light your whole parking lot, it's a fixed attachment, then that's a different issue. That's going to have to be something to be addressed within this 10-year period. I meant to mention something, if you don't mind, this is a little off topic, but one of the original components we had in here as a what we call accent lighting, and there are various ideas there, was something called string lights. These are these fairly bright lights that get hung. They're party lights. You'll see them around restaurants a lot. And in the great discussions that I had with the Finance Committee in particular about this, there was some time spent on this. There would be the potential for a lot of confusion between string lights and holiday lights. What one person might call a string light, another might call a holiday light. You notice there's no mention of controlling holiday lights here. So in deference to all of that, we removed the component, which might be in an earlier version that you have, but this has just happened within the last few days. We've removed string lights as one of the things that we're going to try to control. And in particular, it's not really a problem here in town yet. Maybe in 5 years it will be, and we'll go back and address it.
Can I ask you a question? Do we have the text in here for what the current bylaw states?
It's not here, Paul.
Zoning, in the zoning there's a current zoning bylaw?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
No.
He
has comparisons, but he doesn't have the actual text of the bylaw. I mean, that would be a lot of, I could pull it up if you'd like to see it.
Can you?
Yeah,
Can you pull
hang
it
on
up?
1 second. Yep.
While he's
Thank you.
it's about 2 pages long. The standards for that, I wrote that with Bob Morse back in the day, and as I said, it had essentially the same kind of trigger point in terms of brightness. Brightness of a light is measured by something called lumens. And in the case of the existing bylaw and what I am proposing, those trigger points are still the same. It's 1,000 lumens for an unshielded light, and it's 2,000 lumens for a security light. And so those are unchanged. In fact, where the residential lighting is mentioned at all, there are some new standards that would apply townwide, not specifically for residences or commercial, but for example, if you've got landscape lighting of any kind, then that would be subject to a curfew between midnight and 6 a.m., which is the industry best practice for that. Sorry, Paul. I have it right here in print if there's a specific question.
Here,
Yeah.
outdoor illumination, yeah. What is it which section, do you know which section you want to see, or? It's 195-34, outdoor illumination. And you can see it runs.
One of the things, if I may, that's in the existing bylaw that is now duplicative is there's information there about illuminating signs. This is in the existing bylaw. And about 10 years ago, I think, I worked with the planning board to update the sign bylaw to include illumination requirements. And so that's no longer needed here. So that's actually been removed.
Does anyone else have questions? Pat Maloney, do you have any questions for anyone?
Yeah, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, folks. No questions. I'm just not sure I'm ready to support this. just because of some of the things that have been said, like unintended consequences, but as well as, being, totally adjacent to a major city center, where, parts of town may benefit more than other parts of town. And I know you have to start someplace, but, and I can see it also placing some undue burden on, many homeowners who are, just, and I know, we have the 10-year sunset clause, but even then, there's a lot of people, in town that, just get by. So I'm not sure I can support this in its current form, mostly because I don't think that it would do a lot in different spots around town, especially adjacent to major city centers and so on. So I think at this point I would not be supporting this.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Maybe just one more, because I don't want to harp on this, but say this goes into effect and somebody makes a call that's got to get logged with the lighting standards officer. You said you're going to have to, it's at night, right? So this is not something somebody can solve during the day. And I thought I heard you say, you have to send out, somebody to look at it, because obviously the building inspector's not going to go out at night. Is there, and again, I looked through this again, is there anything in here that kind of defines on how those complaints would get logged and then resolved, or what's your intention, I guess?
Sure, I actually
I
had.
don't necessarily want patrols going out there and saying, yep, there's a light there, we think it's non-conforming, and
Let me just re-emphasize that it's the same initial process as we have now with the existing bylaw.
okay.
If somebody has a complaint that their neighbor's lights are too bright, just as a for example, then typically, I had an extended conversation with Paul about this, then typically a policeman will be dispatched to see, what's going on. Under the existing bylaw, there's no way to declare a winner or a loser,
Okay.
right? Because there are no standards. And so what we're trying to do is make it a little bit more objective. And so that would continue. I think that public safety officer would continue to be the first line of engagement. It is possible for the building inspector to go out during the daytime and just with a little bit of training from me or from somebody else to see just by the design of the light whether it's likely to be conforming or not. If it comes to going out at night to determine it, what this requires is a certain level of intensity at the property line and a light meter. It's a one-button light meter. You press it, it gives you a number, and that determines whether it's in conforming or not. So it's not a long process. Okay. In more complicated situations, say you have, a project that goes in and they've are those lights 3,000 Kelvin or not? Are they bright? Are they blue? Or then you might need, in some cases, to engage a lighting professional. But the intent here is if there is say a project that comes forward and gets installed, and sometimes what's on paper versus what gets installed could be different things, then the cost for bringing in that expert for enforcement would be borne by the petitioner, right? Whoever is making that. We're trying to make this, as Chris was saying, the biggest problem with the existing bylaw is that there's no way to say whether it's conforming or not, really. And this is just to put some meat on those bones. And if I might address what Pat was mentioning, there is no new requirement for a homeowner other than if you've got landscape lighting to turn it off at midnight. There's no requirement for a curfew on your security lights. Security lights themselves are not covered because I don't want to. Everyone has the right to illuminate their property for safety and security, but they don't have the right to illuminate their neighbor's property while they're doing that. And we're just trying to put a little bit of a guardrail on that.
So if I,
Can I just add one more thing?
Sure.
Because the current bylaw is a zoning bylaw, the enforcement goes to the building inspector. And again, the current bylaw states that you can't bleed over into the neighbor's property. Doesn't say by how much, doesn't say by how little. So if they go out there, there's no, like Kelly said, there's no real way to figure out a resolution. So it's completely subjective right now. And so by having this objective metering that can be used, they're able to really determine whether it's in compliance or not.
So the kind of the last question I would have with this, so if I'm a builder in town and I'm building a new home, is the lighting choices that they have today, is it more expensive to be compliant
Not at all.
with this law?
Not at all.
Okay.
And in fact, one of my presentations before the planning board happened to have a developer behind me or in front of me, and he said that builders actually welcome having numerical standards for this kind of stuff because it takes the guesswork out of it from their point of view. And no, there would be no further cost. If I want to install a choice between 5,000 or 4,000 or 2,700, those it's like different flavors of ice cream.
Okay.
You're not going to take away my Christmas lights, are you?
No, that was never the intent.
I love lighting my house up at the holidays, and I think my neighbors like it too.
And I've been in town for 40 years now. I'm smart enough to know that trying to regulate Christmas lighting is the third rail of local politics.
Thank you for that.
Anyone else? Good.
Yeah.
And did the finance committee vote on this? Can you share with
The
us?
Finance Committee's vote on this article was 0 in favor, 6 opposed, with 1 abstention.
Ready
Nope.
for a motion?
Yep, sure, I'll take a motion. Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the select board approve or make approval of Article 29, General Bylaw Amendment, Chapter 108, Outdoor Lighting as submitted.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Pat Bogus?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Nay. No.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a no. So the motion. Oh, wait a minute. I got a yes, no, yes, yes, no, correct?
Yeah, 3 in
Okay,
favor,
so the
2
motion passes with 3 in favor and 2 opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then the accompanying article while we're here is Article 30, which is the zoning article. That would amend the zoning bylaw to reference this general bylaw if it were approved. So similar vote from the Finance Committee, obviously logically, and obviously if this were not approved at town meeting, there'd be no action under the article.
Does anyone have questions on 30?
But you will be asked a recommendation at town meeting.
Right, and I think we should do it.
Yep,
Right.
yep.
Okay, so I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board approve Article 30, zoning bylaw amendment, Section 195-34, outdoor illumination as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Pat Bogus?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Nay.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a no. And the motion passes with 3 in favor and 2 opposed.
Okay, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one, since Crystal Valley's there, we'll go to the planning board zoning articles. First one being Article 31, which is properly titled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Regarding Technical Corrections.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, let me go to your presentation slide.
All right, so after town meeting adopts any bylaws, zoning bylaws, there is a 90-day review period for the Attorney General to review them. In the 90-day review period for the MBTA zoning bylaws that we passed to town meeting, the Attorney General's office did find a few other areas of the bylaws that were problematic, not specifically related to MBTA zoning, but they suggested we review those areas and potentially change them if town council suggests we do so. So you can go to the next slide. So there are three areas that were potential issues. The first is section 19540, erosion control. This had possible conflicting language applying the requirement to special permits, or for special permits to as-of-right projects. The second one was in the fiscal impact of projects to town services. We found out that the land court has held it is unlawful for special permit to be, or for a special permit granting authority to consider the impacts on schools as part of its decision. And then the third area is the definition of family, where the Attorney General said that our definition may conflict with the Fair Housing Act. So we had Town Council review the recommendations. We also had a discussion in a Planning Board work session about this. I reviewed the appropriate sections according to our discussion, and then we came back to make the changes. The changes are really around the school impacts and the definition of family. Town Council found that there was really no need to do anything with the erosion control section. So I'm going to go over the specific changes that we're recommending. So for school impacts, the first one is 19561 for special permitting. It actually specifically talked about the impact on school facilities, so we are recommending removing that. And then in 195-103 special permit section, we're actually explicitly mentioning the exclusion of the public school system as a consideration of impacts. The third one is in the definition of family. We found that there was actually a use of the term family that wasn't needed in 195-108, so we're removing that and just calling it a dwelling unit as opposed to a family unit. And then the definition of family that the Attorney General has recommended to us was the one used in Brookline that did pass the test for the Fair Housing Act, and so that's the one we are suggesting putting in here. One or more persons occupying a dwelling unit and living as a single nonprofit housekeeping unit. And so that is essentially the minor changes that we're proposing to the zoning.
Thank you, Chris. Does anyone have any questions for Chris? Comments? Nope.
Seems pretty straightforward. It's cleanup of the minor changes.
Yep.
Okay,
Finance Committee endorsed 7-0.
okay, thank you. Take a motion then?
Okay, I'll make a motion for the select board to support Article 31 zoning bylaw amendment, various corrections as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second it.
Thank you. And Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Yes. Pat Maloney?
Aye.
And Jeff?
Aye.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes unanimously with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
The next one is Article 32. This is the zoning bylaw amendment pertaining to the floodplain district.
So this one is quite a bit more complex, but actually pretty straightforward because these are required changes of us. So these changes are required of municipalities participating in the National Flood Insurance Act of 1968. We do get benefits as a community and as individuals from participating in the National Flood Insurance Program. I've listed those benefits here on this slide. And if you go to the next slide, FEMA develops detailed requirements and periodically updates their floodplain map. The current requirements that we're updating to are not new. They've actually been in place for decades, but Massachusetts communities have not been required to update to those current requirements. However, more recently, FEMA has told communities that they'll no longer accept local codes lacking these specific components, and that all future bylaw and ordinance reviews must conform to their changes. The 2014 map changes that went before town meeting were focused on the Concord River watershed, and the current map changes that we're proposing, or that FEMA's actually proposing, are focused on the Merrimack River watershed area. The DCR Flood Hazard Management Program worked with us to go through these bylaws, figure out what updates are needed. Massachusetts has a model bylaw that meets the minimum standard that's approved by FEMA and the state AG's office, so we use that as the model. Local bylaws are allowed to be more restrictive than the Massachusetts model, so we didn't want to just take that wholesale and put it into our bylaws, because we do have a couple areas where there are more restrictive. For example, 19580C prohibits new buildings from being erected or constructed, and no existing structure shall be altered, enlarged, or moved that is located in the floodplain. So we wanted to make sure that those more restrictive points stay in our bylaws. The maps on the slides are extremely small, but I did want to give you a little picture of what they look like. These are available on the FEMA website, and I have links at the last slide if people are interested in taking a look at what the changes are. It's an interactive map that provides the before and after changes that you can take a look at. Also some additional links there if people want to take a look at our DCR review, and then the state model bylaw. But again, the changes are pretty straightforward. They're all required by FEMA, and they were modeled after the state model that is approved by the Attorney General.
Does anyone have any questions, comments for Chris? No? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll recommend that select board recommend approval of Article 32 zoning bylaw amendment floodplain district as presented.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, and we'll do a roll call vote again. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the motion passes unanimously with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
So that concludes our outside presentations. What I will do, since Chris is here, and I'll be out of courtesy because I don't know how long he's planning on staying, is I'll go to Article 28, which is a zoning bylaw, but it's proposed by me as town manager. But obviously, the planning board has a recommendation, as did the finance committee. So let me get to that real quick. This has to do with an amendment regarding in the 129 district. Here we are. Went way too fast. Okay, right here. Article 28. This article would amend our Route 129 Business Amenities Overlay District by deleting the strike-through text and underlined text as shown on the screen. Let me just sort of summarize it. This would allow standalone drive-through fast casual restaurants in that portion of the business corridor located on Billerica Road from Alpha Road to the Billerica Town Line and at the end of Mill Road near 129. The bylaw would only allow for 3 fast casual restaurants. One already exists, which is Press Cafe. That's not standalone because that's in a existing building. As you know, Triton Systems is in that building. That already exists and was obviously permitted under the current bylaw. And I'm also proposing expanded hours of operation beyond the 10 p.m. Where the genesis of this has to do with bringing amenities into the 129 overlay district. The bylaw was adopted 9 years ago, and thus far, we've had the successful entry of Press Cafe, but now even despite Press Cafe's success, unquestioned success, no one else is coming in. And even the plaza that was permitted across on Mill Road, which was envisioned to be a small plaza for amenities, ended up being shelved and now is sort of a autism facility to care for students with autism. What brought this to light was the parcel, and you see outlined here in the green. Obviously here's Route 3, here's 129. This parcel in the green was currently tenanted by the Lighthouse School, and they vacated the site because they put their addition out at their campus. And the property owner met with Evan and me, the community development director, Evan Blansky, and me, and basically reported that because of the current situation in the office market, they're having difficulty re-tenanting that plaza. As we know, office vacancies are in a slump because of the post-pandemic economy. And so his proposal was to raise the building in its entirety and allow for 2 standalone drive-through restaurants. The article was then presented to the chair and the vice chair of the planning board. With no action coming from that, I put the article on the warrant. And the reason I do this is because there is an expressed desire from occupants in the business district to have more than one amenity, the Press Cafe. Why this parcel, in my mind, is favorable for that development, even though the area, as I mentioned earlier, would go from Alpha Road down to the town line by the Forum and onto this portion of Mill Road, is because this particular parcel, where there's interest, as you can see, it's bounded on 3 sides, basically by highway. There's no residential properties. Here's the off ramp if you're coming onto the property. If you were exiting Route 3 South and were coming into Chelmsford, basically you've got off ramp on 3 sides. So therefore, there's no residential impact. Also, there's a traffic signal here at Mill Road, and you have a dedicated left turn lane, and then obviously the ability to come back out. Traffic signal, because what's envisioned by their marketing people is 90+% of the traffic is going to come from Route 3 corridor and 129. You're really not going to see an impact from the Mill Road or Elizabeth Drive area, certainly not Elizabeth Drive. So this is sort of a conceptual image of how you would place 2 parcels on that property, standalone drive-throughs. And then the last question is, what would it look like? And this would retain the ability for the planning board as the special permitting authority to regulate the appearance of any structure as part of the permitting process, much like they did with the CVS and as you know, in Chelmsford Center, which this building appearance was not what was originally submitted. And anyway, so it's a reflection of the market realities on 129. As the board may be aware, and I shared with you last week and is going before the planning board next week, there's a similar project being requested at the Chelmsford Mall by the new owners of the Chelmsford Mall, because today's consumer wants to stay in their vehicle. They don't want to get out of their car, and that's why you're seeing these what they call upscale type of fast casual restaurants. Your Press Cafes, your Panera Breads, your Starbucks, and so forth. And yes, it does even allow the extent of McDonald's if that's, the market dictates. And the reason for this interest is, again, it's consumer driven, but also if you go from Drum Hill to the Burlington end of Route 3, there's no convenient, quick on and off amenities off of the highway. So, so if you're coming, if a lot of traffic gets on at the Lowell connector, which is, on this side of Drum Hill and is going towards Burlington, there's nowhere convenient you can get on and off the highway. So what this would do is this would allow that use in this area, again, from Alpha Road to the line, Billerica line in this area. Again, it would have to go to the planning board for special permitting or process. And then the other benefit the town would have, in addition to having additional amenities in the corridor, but obviously not impacting the corridor because it's right on the edge, right by the highway, is we'd also generate the meal stacks that would come from those who would frequent this location. So that's the presentation on this. What I can tell you is both the planning board and the finance committee support this article. With abstentions. There were 2 abstentions on the planning board and one being the same person abstained on the finance committee. So those are the abstentions in the vote.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? You said they were all in favor with the except.
Yeah,
exception of
the
abstentions.
planning board had 2 abstentions, and Anita Tonini, who sits also on the finance committee, abstained at the finance committee as well. The other votes were in favor. And Chris was the other abstention.
So, Paul, that's a TIFed property, correct?
That's what?
Has a TIF on the property?
No. That
The
property
one-
does
the
not.
one-
And we
one
were
on
not-
Mill Road
We're
doesn't?
not proposing that, no. The one that has the tip is the analog devices over here on Elizabeth and their 2 locations on Omni Way, so.
That's not going to fall
No,
into.
but when I did talk to them, they support, I was in contact with them because obviously they're trying to figure out what's going on with the CHIPS Act. But when I spoke to them with the latest update, I said, well, what would your thought be about allowing another amenity drive-through, or 2 in the location? They thought their employees would welcome it. Not that there's anything wrong with Press Cafe is, but they'd like a little bit, another place to choose in addition to Press Cafe that's convenient and close that they could get in, get back to work in a reasonable time frame.
I think when you see, a standalone restaurant or a standalone business without any other sort of competition isn't always necessarily a good thing. So if you're building up the amenities in there, I think what I liked about this, I know folks in town are not necessarily huge fans of the fast food, the fast casual, the drive-throughs, but this almost seems like a little bit of an ideal location, and it would bring in a lot of people that were not in town, and that's some of the new revenue sources that we're talking about and looking for. So I think I don't see the traffic impact having an impact over there like I would with other parts of town. So I would definitely be in support of this, and I think it supports the property owner too, and ensures we get something in there versus potential blight.
I agree. I'm generally in favor.
Do you mind if I just make a comment?
No, that's why I
Sure.
did it while you were here, Chris.
Thank you.
I
I just wanted to mention that since I was the other person to abstain, the reason why I abstained is because the overlay of how the overlay was created. The overlay was created with a pretty significant cross-town committee. It went to town meeting, and I didn't feel as a planning board we should be the ones to make that type of change. So that's why I felt I wanted to abstain and then bring it to town meeting as part of the town meeting discussion.
Because you're essentially, you're making changes to an overlay that was adopted by town meeting and not by the planning board. So.
And it was not only adopted by town meeting, but it was also conceived and developed by a pretty significant cross-town committee.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions, comments? Pat on Zoom? No? Okay, I'll take a motion then.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 28, zoning bylaw amendment, fast casual restaurants in Route 129 overlay district as presented.
Can I get a second? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff? Yes. Aaron?
Yes.
Yes. Donna, yes. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, now we'll go back to the beginning,
Thank you.
and it'll be more like a lightning round, I think, compared to what we just went through. Article 1 is no action, it's just reports. We're going to hear reports from the strategic plan, brief reports regarding the strategic plan, the Parker School Building Committee, and the financial overview, as we always do at the beginning of the town meeting. There will be a dozen articles of the 34 on consent, and I'll identify them as we go through it. Article 2 is amendments to the current year operating budgets. We'll have that for you at your next meeting. Darlene sort of wrapped up some of work on it today, and we're just proofing that out. So we'll present that to you next Monday night and then present it to the Finance Committee next Thursday. Article 3 is the Neshoba Tech budget. The budget is an amount of $4,035,630 and was shown through the Neshoba Tech presentations. And we have a member of the Neshoba Tech Committee here with us this evening on the board. It's a de minimis nominal increase in their budget because of the change in enrollment and the request and the fact that their budget is overall going up by a minor amount, as presented in the detailed documents I shared with you in your packet this evening. And so the Finance Committee recommended this Article 7-0.
Does anyone have comments, questions? I'll take a motion.
Yeah, Pat, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Okay, I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 3, Neshoba Valley Technical School District FY26 assessment.
Second.
I'll second that.
Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay. Article 4 is the Chelmsford Public Schools proposed operating budget for fiscal year 26 in the amount of $75,650,000. And again, I shared with you the voluminous, detailed school operating budget, which, again, has a moderate an increase that's below level service and below the request from the school committee.
Any questions?
And Finance
comments?
Committee recommends this Article 7-0.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything? No? If not, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 4, fiscal year 2026, Chelmsford Public Schools operating budget as presented.
I'll second.
And Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
And Pat Maloney?
Aye.
And Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Article 5 sort of completes the operating budget by the general government fiscal year 26 operating budget, and you can see it's there as presented with the various funding sources. Obviously the budget, as we've discussed, and you have the detailed narrative of the presentation from January, as well as the detailed line items of the budget. The budget increase for general government is only $222,000 or 0.58%, and that, again, the reason it's less than what the schools got at this point, and still would be, is we cannot fund collective bargaining agreements in advance of settlements, and so there's a separate article that deals with collective bargaining agreements for public safety and the library unions. So the increase is only $222,000, 0.58%. For the general government department budgets. And then obviously, as we've noted in the presentations, the major increase of almost 12.5% is the benefits and insurance, a $4 million funding increase, primarily due to the escalating costs of our health insurance premiums and retirement assessment. Unfortunately, our health insurance budget is going up by $2.98 million because of the 17.77% increase in premiums, and our retirement assessment is going up by $1,012,000 because of the 8.4% in our retirement assessment. Again, Finance Committee recommends this budget, which, as we know, is not level service on the general government side, and we've obviously did not fund a number of positions, including the 3 layoffs that we had, several weeks ago. So the Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions, comments? No. All right, I'll take a motion then.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 5, fiscal year 2026, general government operating budget as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, and we're going to take a roll call vote. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor and 0 opposed.
Article 6 is collective bargaining agreements. We don't have any final for you this evening. We expect to have some police contracts, again, that would be pending ratification by the union and by the board prior to the next meeting. So there's no action at this point under Article 6. Article 7 is the traditional article to fund the Finance Committee Reserve Fund, and the amount requested, once again, is $400,000 to address emergency unforeseen expenditures during the current fiscal year for the $168.4 million proposed budget. The Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Questions, comments? Nope. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 7, Finance Committee Reserve Fund in the amount of $400,000 as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
And Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Jeff.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, Article 8 is the proposed fiscal year 2026 capital budget and a total appropriation of $5,969,385 to fund all the items you see here listed on the page, as was recommended unanimously by the Capital Plan Committee last December and is unanimously endorsed by the Finance Committee by a 7-0 vote. And John Souza is the chair of that committee, and he can answer any questions that you might have. And you have the detailed presentations.
Does anyone have questions, comments? Okay, I'll take a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 8, fiscal year 2026 capital budget as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
And Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Article 9 is we now leave the operating budget and go in, and capital budget and go into the enterprise funds, which are the self-contained funding for certain operations of the town. The first one being the sewer enterprise operating budget. You can see the proposal is for $5.6 million. And the Finance Committee recommends 7-0, and you have the detail line items in the materials we presented for you. It's an increase of 4.82% over the current fiscal year, much of that driven by the increased assessment for the treatment of our effluent wastewater by the city of Lowell.
Questions, comments? Nope. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 9, fiscal year 2026 sewer enterprise fund operating budget as presented.
Need a second. Okay, Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
And Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Jeff.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay. Article 10 stays within the DPW enterprise as prepared by Public Works Director Christine Clancy. This would fund the stormwater management enterprise for fiscal year 26. As you can see, just over $900,000 in personnel and $765,000 in expenses. It's a budget increase of 4.92% or $78,000, again, to maintain all of our miles of drainage, catch basins, culverts, and so forth. Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Questions or comments? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 10, fiscal year 2026 stormwater management enterprise fund operating budget as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Jeff.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, Article 11 is a capital equipment purchase for the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, which is why it's separate, because it's voted separately and the debt service gets paid in that enterprise fund in future years. This would appropriate $290,000 that would be borrowed for the purchase of a 10-wheel dump truck for the Stormwater Division. Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No.
Is this a new purchase or is
This is a new purchase. They don't have this type of vehicle.
Good. Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 11, stormwater, for a stormwater 10-wheel dump truck as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
and Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. The next article is now go into the Forum Enterprise Fund, which is, people may be aware, the Forum is owned by the town. We contract competitively for a management firm, and then the $65,000 that it's appropriated that comes from the revenues from the lease pays for the town's investment into the Forum. Again, this article is level funded at $65,000 for the current upcoming fiscal year, and Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Questions or comments? I'll take a motion.
I'll recommend that, I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 12, fiscal year 2026, Forum Ice Rink Enterprise Fund operating budget as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Yes.
and Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Article 13 is the Public Educational Government Access and Cable-Related Enterprise Fund. That basically provides what we call PEG access, which includes the telecasting of tonight's meeting. Pete Padula is the custodian of this budget, which is a component of the town, but again, stands self-alone. The revenues you can see come from the cable television licensing, so just under $578,000. And again, they're able to sustain their operations despite people cutting the cord at this point. So that's the budget stands, and it Finance Committee recommends favor 7-0.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 13, fiscal year 2026, PEG access and cable-related enterprise fund operating budget as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
and Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Article 14 is the Golf Course Enterprise Fund operating budget. This is level funded once again, for $30,000 for the upcoming fiscal year. And similar to the Forum, we contract competitively for a professional golf course management company to operate the fund. And again, it's not funded from the property tax levy, and then the money from the $30,000 goes into the enterprise fund and is expended to care and maintain the facility and improve it when necessary. The Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Thank you.
Paul,
Yes.
how has the receipts been over there?
Good, relatively strong. I mean, part of what's helping us is the sort of a little bit more popularity of golf, but also some of these smaller 9-hole courses have gone away.
Well, a lot of the public
Exactly.
courses have gone away.
And so that's helping us. So yeah, we're holding our own over there.
Well, they've done a great job over there.
Yeah, they keep it in good condition. And our latest investment is obviously putting up the higher netting because the big swingers are going over our net at this point.
Anyone else? I'll take a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 14, fiscal year 2026 Golf Course Enterprise Fund operating budget as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And I'll take a roll call vote. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
and Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, Article 15 is the required, under current state law, to annually appropriate the departmental revolving funds. That again, as the name suggests, they're funds that are set up that their operations fund the expenses from that. As you can see, it has to do with dog pound and licensing, senior citizen trips, police cruiser equipment, fire life safety, cemetery wreath floral decorations, and so forth. Again, these amounts are level funded for the year. And again, we're required under current state law, even though there's been a request to amend it to only have to change it when to vote it when you wanted to change the amount, but current state law, we're required annually to vote this fund in. Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Questions?
Paul, I recently saw an article somewhere that the folks that were doing the wreaths at the cemetery
Yeah,
are
I saw
no
that.
longer
No
going
longer
to do it.
Yeah, so hopefully some folks will step forward and want to continue that good tradition.
It's a lot of work. I know people who do it throughout the country, and it is. It's a lot. I mean, you're asking people to spend a lot of time, and if you make a mistake,
Yeah,
it would
you
be
hear about it.
upsetting. So you gotta be careful with that. That's
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 15, the annual authorization of departmental revolving funds as presented.
second.
Thank you. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes. 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Article 16 is an article that appears almost at every town meeting now. This is to transfer funds from the Cemetery Improvement Fund, from the sale of lots and graves to the Cemetery Improvement and Development Fund. This town meeting, the request is for $50,000 to pave and repair drainage structures at the West Chelmsford Cemetery and remove older, potentially hazardous trees throughout all the 6 cemeteries in town. Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
No questions, comments?
I just recently drove through West Chelmsford. They put a new fence in there. That was from Community Preservation Funds, I believe.
Yep.
Looks fantastic. So much better than it did before.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 16, Cemetery Improvement and Development Fund as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff. And Pat?
Yes.
And Pat?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes. 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Article 17 is for property valuation services. This is a request to transfer $160,000 from overlay surplus to fund the property valuation services as part of the town's 5-year property valuation certification by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue. What's taking place here is every 5 years we do a property revaluation. We're in that year right now. In addition, the Department of Revenue requires the town to inspect every property once every 10 years. So you see this article this year and then a complementary article a year from now so we can complete all that work. And then the first part of the motion is the vote that we took last April was technically incorrect. So now we're correcting it because this time we had the Board of Assessors declare the overlay surplus. Overlay surplus is the amount that's left over that you set aside for abatements and exemptions when you close out the fiscal years. So again, this article would basically provide us with a contractor, because we don't have the in-house capability in the assessor's office, to perform professional valuation inspections on properties throughout the town as required by state law. Finance Committee recommends 6-0 with 1 abstention.
Does anyone have questions? No. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 17, Property Valuation Services for FY26, 5-year property valuation certification as presented.
I'll second.
All right, and I have another roll call vote. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Article 18 is veterans exemptions, and this article was brought forth by our veterans agent, Regina Jackson, who unfortunately is not physically able to be here this evening, but I'm probably watching it, and really was spearheaded this based upon legislation that was enacted by the legislature last fall. This would provide an annual increase in the amount of veterans exemptions by basically the inflation factor, the CPI, as you can see. And this would start at the start of the upcoming fiscal year on July 1st. Basically, you can see at the HEROES Act. So right now, the exemption is $400. And so this would allow that amount to increase every year by the Consumer Price Index. And we project the first year costs under this article would be about $5,000. And then again, it would just compound as you move forward. And the idea is to keep the value of the exemption somewhat current with the value of money as you move forward. And so again, this is a benefit for veterans, and the Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Is there any thought of making this be statewide so it's not like a local option?
No, because what happens here is the town's responsible for the additional CPI every year. So the state, when they give us some reimbursement for exemptions, they did not include themselves in it. So they're not going to mandate it if they don't fund it, because if they mandate it, then it becomes an unfunded mandate and they'd have to fund it. So they leave that to the local government to do. So no, there's no indication that the state would and then historically, when there've been these type of CPI adjustments, they've never have contributed to that. They leave that to the local community.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Any thoughts?
Guess I'll have to play more Keno.
Seems to be the right thing to do, for sure.
We don't have any other,
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll see
Regularly
the next
occurring
article. You'll see
annual.
one on seniors coming up right after this.
so we do have one for seniors. Okay, I was going to say, okay. I don't have anything else. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 18 to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 221, to increase the veterans exemption as presented.
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
So Article 19 is the equivalent language, which has been longstanding for senior exemptions. And again, this increases the $175 exemption annually by the Consumer Price Index. Because there are so few that qualify, we think the estimated cost is about $50 for the upcoming fiscal year, and then it would compound going forward. So we're recommending at this time that we adopt this, and then the Board of Assessors has agreed to, and they're undertaking to see what further options the town could take to increase exemptions for seniors. Because sadly, this 175 exemption has been in place for, I think, since the 1990s, and obviously it doesn't hold its market value. And so there are other levels of exemption that you can, by increasing the income level and the asset levels. And so the assessors are going to do that study and come back probably at a fall town meeting, as early as fall town meeting perhaps, to look at what further exemptions we can provide for seniors. But this is the first step on this effort.
Okay.
Finance Committee recommended 7-0.
Anyone have questions? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 19 to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 17F to increase seniors exemption as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
And Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. Article 20 is an article I've submitted to request $50,000 to fund the study to fund municipal operations, streamline municipal services, cost effectiveness, customer service, basically be all catch all. And I think the reason I submitted this is we're in for who knows what's ahead of us. We do know from our financial forecast that our current level of operation is not sustainable, as we saw in the reductions this year. Because of the inflationary environment. And now with the further uncertainty of cuts from Washington, the federal funding that may go through the state, as well as whatever else is going to happen in the months ahead, requesting $50,000 for the board to basically approve areas that, as we set our goals and what we should be looking at in terms of how we can operate effectively and meet the service needs that are present in any manner. So it's a long-winded way of saying is we need this because we don't know what we're going to look at or how we're going to look at it, but we know we've got to look at things because we can, as evidenced by the current budget, that sustain what we're doing. And so, again, I list examples, but we don't know, and that's why I use the words for example and not limited to, because there are no more sacred cows. Everything's got to be looked at. And so this would provide the kind of money that we would need to see if perhaps we need outside assistance to really dig into something. And, some of them aren't pleasant, and you've seen some of our neighboring communities look at those items. Most notably, the town of Drake did a $4 million trash fee, which mirrored the city of Lowell because they didn't think they could sell an override in Drake it. And as you can tell, there's questions that we've got to look at in terms of whether it's trash collection, whether it's snow removal on sidewalks, whether it's whether we can participate in or conduct or perform regional dispatch, whether it's issues that are extraneous to us like the water districts but affect Chelmsford residents, and so forth. So that's what this article is seeking to do, and the Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Is the professional technical assistance, is that, I mean, is 50,000
I don't know.
appropriate?
We don't know. If we have to come back in the fall, we'll come back in the fall, and maybe it's too much. We don't know. What we do know is we're going to have to get on this real soon. It's the same problem the state is dealing with right now, is how do you prepare a budget with an unknown parameters of funding? And so we're going to have to do with that as the best information we have available. So we don't know. And that's what the discussion I think we'll have as a board after town meeting is, what should we be looking at? Because you'll see in the financial forecast, and we'll have detailed discussions, the current pace that we're on right now is not sustainable. And the cuts we had this year were not pleasant and not insignificant, but all the low-hanging fruit is gone. And so now the question is, what do we look at?
So this just releases the 50,000
provides
so
some
that we
funding
can
so we
have
can-
it if we want
see what we wanna
to, if
do
we
with
want to engage someone immediately.
Exactly.
Okay.
I like this because we're acting and not reacting.
And it's not anything specific you have in
Nope.
mind. We could use it for studies, we could use it for consulting.
Yep. Yeah, it's
just to
basically
get the
providing the
process
board
started.
and the manager with some means that we can effectively look wherever we have to.
Yeah. I'm with Jeff. As proactive as we can be is where I want to be.
Pat?
I'm all set with it.
Okay, I'll take a motion then, if no one has anything.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 20 to study operations to fund and improve municipal operations as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. We'll take a roll call vote. And Pat?
Yes.
And Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Article 21 is sort of another one of these things where you're looking under every stone. This was submitted by the superintendent of schools, and I'm placing it on here because this would allow the school department to be reimbursed from the federal government under Title IV for transportation of foster children. And in order to do that, the school committee has to approve a memorandum of agreement, but town meeting has to authorize that initial year or initial contract for this. So the idea is they may be able to obtain a 20% reimbursement for foster care transportation services, again, assuming that, that those are provided in the future from the federal government. So again, there's no downside to this article, and Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Is there any estimate for what this could mean?
I think it was around $20,000. It wasn't a huge amount, but again, pennies here, pennies there add up. Yeah,
That's what they
exactly.
estimate in the
Yeah,
immediate
exactly,
impact?
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Anyone else? I'll take a motion then.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 21, school department foster care children transportation reimbursement as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff. We have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay. Article 22 is an article that I submitted that would amend the general bylaw regarding the deadline for the release of the town manager's proposed operating capital budgets under the provisions of the town charter and bylaw. And the reason I'm doing this is because we're no longer in sort of the level service traditional customary budget process. If you look at the language of the charter, the section 6.2, it provides that the manager releases his budget 90 days, prior to the release of the town meeting. And what it says is that the preliminary budget as adopted by the school committee should be submitted to the town manager at least 90 days prior to the spring session of town meeting to enable the town manager to consider the effect of the school department's requested appropriation on the budget as a whole. The town bylaw, section 35, basically says that the town manager's budget has to be 90 days. Well, 90 days and 90 days is equal. So therefore, what's happened in recent years is, and including this year, is I'm releasing a budget not knowing the detail of the school department budget, which is not what's envisioned in the charter. And quite frankly, any manager, it's not me, because I won't be manager forever, but any manager needs to know what the whole component is in order to make an informed decision about how much to fund the Chelmsford Public Schools, what are they requesting, just like we received the request from the Neshoba Public Schools, and also from the department heads. And so the reason I'm trying to push the town manager from 90 to 80 days is I'm leaving the school traditional budgetary process alone, but then allowing me to release the budget 10 days after the school department releases its budget. And how that would work in the upcoming year is you work from the end. So the town meeting in next year will be April 27th. So my budget would then be released on February 5th, which is 10 days later than the current year. The school department's preliminary budget would be on the 3rd. The Neshoba Tech releases theirs on January 30th, and then the governor submits the budget on the 28th of January. So that's why I going into these extraordinary times and for the future, the manager's budget has to be delayed. The good news is in recent years, the Finance Committee hasn't begun their deliberations until the second week of February anyway, so this isn't going to slow down the Finance Committee process as well. Finance Committee recommends a 7-0.
So from February 3rd to February 5th is not 10 days.
Yeah, so because they technically don't release it, they don't release it
Oh, but
90
you'll have
days,
it.
but I at least need to have it. And so what I'm doing is I'm leaving their non-compliance alone, and at least allowing me the ability to see that budget, because that budget is released, as we've seen, on the 3rd. That would give me a couple days before I finalize the numbers on the town side. And certainly throughout this whole process, we're going to continue the collaboration and communication amongst all the parties, including the Select Board, Finance Committee, and School Committee. But when it comes down to the end of the difficult choices, you need to know what's there in order to recommend a funding level for all components of the budget. And especially where the school department budget is twice as large as the general government budget, when you look at the different departments.
Is this a Chelmsford thing, or is this kind of is the 90-day standard?
No, it's a Chelmsford thing by the charter. Every towns have different
Everyone has
schedules.
their own schedules.
And cities have different schedules, but in this case, or in this model where the manager submits the budget, and even if the Finance Committee, you need to know the whole puzzle before you can make the final call. And so it would make a difference. Quite frankly, it would have this year.
Right.
Had I seen what was being proposed on the school side, it would have affected what I thought was reasonable level of funding amongst all the parties. And I can tell you, we didn't do that. I mean, John, Susan, and I worked on this, and we were basically, discussing numbers with the superintendent without knowing what the numbers meant.
Right. And is there what was the premise behind the 90 days before to get it released?
The idea is you need to have time to have the budget hearings, the process, and then the recommendation schedule. So what happens is the budget gets released 90 days, Finance Committee holds, several weeks of hearings, and then they make their recommendations, and then they got to print the report and release the report in advance of town meeting. So that's the 90-day criteria. It's the same, it's just a sound way of budgeting to allow the sufficient time for review and consideration. Same thing, that's why this board has to do it, because the new board seated has to make recommendations 3 weeks before town meeting.
I mean, I think the extra 10 days to get better clarity and quality seems worth it to me.
Okay. Nobody else has questions, comments? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 22, General Bylaw Amendment, submission of the Town Manager's proposed budget as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, the next article, Article 23, this is an increase in dog license fees. This came out of the review that we had to see if we're recovering our costs with our fees. And you can see this increases the dog licensing fees as presented. Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Anybody have questions, comments? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 23, General Bylaw Amendment, Dog and Kennel License Fees as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff. And Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
And Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Same thing on Article 24, a sale of weights and measures fees. Those are the people that go out and do all the price scanners and the fuel pumps and scales and so forth. And again, we're now in a collaborative, which I hope you'll vote this evening, because NIMCOG stopped providing this service. Part of the reason NIMCOG stopped providing the service is it wasn't financially viable, and they couldn't employ people to do the service. So now we've come in, and again, we're proposing, you'll see later this evening, a 3-town collaborative, and these are the fees that we believe will cover the cost for this service to these businesses who have the scales, and whether it's Market Basket or Kohl's or jewelry stores and so forth. So the Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Thank you. Anyone have questions, comments? Okay, I'll take a motion then.
I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 24, General Bylaw Amendment, Sealer of Weights and Measures, Fees as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. And Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
And Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, Article 25 is the Community Preservation Fund, traditional article at Springtown meeting. This article funds the debt service, the administrative expenses, and sets reserves as required under the Community Preservation Law. You can see our projected revenue is $1.8 million, of which $250,000 comes from the state. We have to set aside 10% to the required allocations minimum by state law. And then here's our debt service, $1,187,965 for previously approved projects. And then the $50,000 is what they fund for their admin expenses. Finance Committee recommends favorably by 7-0 vote, as does the Community Preservation Committee, obviously.
Any questions or comments? One. Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 25, Community Preservation Fund, FY26 Debt Service, Admin Expenses, and Reserves as presented.
I'll second.
And we have a motion and a second. And Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
And Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, Article 26 is a community preservation funded article that has the endorsement of the Community Preservation Committee, and this, again, came from the Select Board goal and a long-standing overdue town goal of continuing the underground utility project through the town center. This would transfer $1 million from the Community Preservation General Reserve and borrow $1 million through the Community Preservation Fund to fund the suppression of the overhead utility lines in the town center. This, as you know, is what it looks like. This is what we want to get rid of. This is the view, right? That's the center, that portion that we're talking about, because as you know, the common area has already been completed. This would bring it down through the central square to the library. The reason we need to do this is we have, almost $4 million in National Grid funds to do their portion of the project. The problem is, under the antiquated state law, the Verizon portion comes from landlines. And as you know, not many people have landlines anymore, and the price of them is kind of stagnant. So because of that, Verizon won't undertake the project without a viable funding source. And so this would provide community preservation funds to restore the historic appearance of the town center. Community Preservation Committee, as I noted, endorses this, as does the Finance Committee unanimously. And what would happen is, if this is funded, we would move from town meeting to begin the design work for the two utilities and hopefully have some construction work perhaps by the end of 26 or so. It's going to take some time for them to do the design work on this project. Meanwhile, there's no surcharge from National Grid because their funding is already in place, and we shut that surcharge down years ago. But this basically provides the funding for Verizon costs. Those are the two main utilities. Comcast, their costs are minor. They just tack it on to their bills as another one of those line items at the end, and their costs are relatively insignificant. They're just running a conduit. Why it's so expensive for Verizon is if you go through the center, look at that. There are major trunk lines from Verizon going through the center of town. So that's why the cost is significant. And the biggest part is underneath here, as we know, is a brook. So you've got to put it underneath the brook and make it possible through the center. So again, Finance Committee and Community Preservation recommend this article.
So is the intent that Verizon would eventually repay this?
No. The intent is the portion of Chelmsford residents would have paid for it anyway, because the surcharge only comes in the community where you're doing the work. And so this isn't increasing the community preservation tax because it's leaving the assessment amount alone. It's just taking a portion of those monies that have been collected and will be collected and putting it towards this historic restoration project. So in one way, the Chelmsford would have paid for it one way or the other.
Okay.
In this way, it's being paid for by the entirety of the town rather than the people who have landlines. And the problem with the landlines is it was taking in less than $70,000 a year, the surcharge level under the state law. And Verizon wasn't going to do a project that cost in the millions at a $70,000 per year payback. And, it's just not going to happen.
So if we do this, then would we cancel the Verizon surcharge?
We don't have Verizon canceled the surcharge itself after they finished the work at the Common.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize.
So there
they
has not been a
canceled
Verizon surcharge, yeah.
it. Right.
So this won't create any more burden on the tax levy, I'm
No,
assuming?
no. Comes under preservation and the preservation surcharge.
And the Verizon and National Grid already have this money set aside. We just need this rest of it to.
Yeah, National Grid has the money set aside. Our money is set aside from previous electric bills in Chelmsford. Verizon will take the money that we provide from the Community Preservation Act to reimburse itself for its costs. The thing is, you got to understand, this is not a priority for Verizon or National Grid because it doesn't bring any revenue into them. It just takes the existing lines and puts them under the ground. Doesn't bring them any new customers. It may bring a little bit of, improved service in the center because you're not going to have poles hit. You're not going to have storms causing above ground damage. But no, it doesn't. It's not a priority for the utilities.
And this will be everything they're putting in, we're putting in is enough to kind of cover any of the unexpected. I mean,
that's what we hope. Yeah, that's what
design hasn't been
right. If there was something that was extraordinary, the first thing will happen to be the design. Then we'll report back to you on the design and the construction costs and whether and how to proceed.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Oh, I'll take a motion then, Pat.
I'll make a motion that the Select Board recommend approval of Article 26, Community Preservation Fund, Town Center Underground Utilities Project as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
And Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Paul, what's the time?
Right now, it's about 5 minutes.
No, the timetable on that project.
Oh, you're probably not going. It's going to take them a year to design it easily, so you're probably not going to see construction out there till maybe late fall 26. But if you had good weather when we did the first phase, they actually did the work through the winter. The good news is we've already acted on 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. So we only have a couple left, which are real easy. They're easement articles. Let me get there. Oops.
You're looking for 33, right?
Yeah, 33. You just get there. 33, you get through 31, 32. 33 is basically, this is work for being performed by National Grid in the, I'll get in the backfeed. This, in the, for our electric vehicle charging stations, normally work that's done within the right-of-way, the Select Board can grant, but because these work are going to be on town-owned properties, we have to have town meeting approve the easement for the utilities to put in the work for the electrical service, as shown at this building, the senior center, in Vinyl Square, at Roberts Field, and yeah, I think that's all. And the library, and the library. So that's what's requested under this article is the granting of allow the Select Board to grant easements to perform the electric vehicle charging stations at those locations for the town. Again, Finance Committee recommends unanimously in favor of this article.
Any questions or comments? No. Take a motion then.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 33, easements on town properties for electric vehicle charging stations as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Pat, how would you?
Yes.
Yes, Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
And then the final article is Woodbine Street acceptance. It's the extension of Woodbine Street, which you can see on the map here. This on the far right is Market Basket Plaza, and is Woodbine Street. It's when DPW is out there doing the work on the drainage and the roadway. Much like we found we did Parkhurst, there's an area that was never formally accepted by the town. So this would bring that into acceptance, and the benefit of it being accepted also adds mileage inventory to our Chapter 90 formula, which, is the amount of money that's distributed to the town for resurfacing of roadways. Finance Committee recommends 7-0.
Any questions or comments? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend approval of Article 34, street acceptance of Woodbine Street extension as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, and we're going to roll call vote. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
And Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed. And that's it, right?
That's it. Yes, that's it.
Okay. So I guess we move on. Next we have, is that right? That's it for reports and presentations?
Yep.
So next we have a request to install a memorial bench at Varney Playground.
Yeah, as
I
you
don't
know,
know if
you
you
had this
wanna-
request from a
yeah.
resident, and Christine Clancy is sort of, with her staff, has facilitated the ability to install a memorial bench at Varney Playground, and they've determined that it is viable to do it at that location.
Yeah.
And per the board's policy, we have a formal request, and then it has to be accepted by the board under its memorial policy. And so, yeah, we're seeking the board's approval so that we can work with the family to memorize their lost loved one.
So just so you know, this Pat brought this to me maybe over a month ago, and I met with them and I with the mother that submitted the request, and I talked to the DPW director, and I talked to Joe Tierney with the
Final square.
Yes, the Final Square Committee, thank you, to make sure that they didn't have any concerns. And nobody involved seemed to have any concerns, and the DPW is okay with the placement, and they've talked to Ms. Manning about the cost of the bench and everything. So, and they are good to go as soon as they have our approval. So.
Are there any other spots or opportunities for other people to do the same thing?
I think so. So in the discussion with the DPW director, the benches that I think they have been putting up there, the DPW actually suggested that they use a different type of bench because the existing benches that they're using have not been holding up due to vandalism and other weather, I guess. But they haven't been holding up the way that they had originally hoped. So they have new metal benches. And I think at some point there is space, I think, for more benches. But also I think at some point they will probably have to swap out some of those other ones because they're not doing so. Christine Clancy could speak better to that if she'd like to. if you want to come. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you. Yeah, so that was asked of us, do we have a list? So right now, we don't have a list of recommended trees or benches, which is often requests we have, but we do, I guess, if someone comes forward with a request, we try to accommodate them. Mm-hmm. And so at a lot of spaces, we have put them up at Roberts Field. Varney would be our first. And yes, so we have the composite benches that just are not holding up well. And so we want these to last, more than 10 years. And then metal benches are recommended. So that will be our standard moving forward. And so if we do have any requests, we could look to see if potential opportunities around town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I guess it's on a case-by-case basis. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? No?
We need a vote.
Need a motion.
We need a motion to approve this, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll take a motion, Pat, if you're,
I'll make a motion that the select board approve the request to install a memorial bench at Barney Playground and the request for recognition as presented.
I'll second.
thank you. We have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik
Yes.
and Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 approved, 0 opposed, sorry. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have the approval of the regulatory agreement for 255 Princeton Street.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the board, believe it or not, the first units for the former development of the development of the former UMass West campus are basically ready to come online within the next few weeks. One of the things that has to be completed as part of this is what's here before you, nothing like a deadline to get work done by the applicant. This is the revised regulatory agreement for 255 Princeton Street. And what this allows us to do is submit, the project to the state because we have 7 affordable units under the 6 affordable units under the development for that project. So again, we asked your formal vote approval this evening to submit that required to the Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities, and again, to allow the developer to proceed with compliance with the occupancy permit. And there are other components as well. They have sent the check payment, you may recall, under the project to the Chelmsford Public Schools and so forth. So this is, again, part of the completion of the readiness of the project.
Okay.
So I have a question about this.
Yep.
Who monitors, who gets those? Is it the town or is it
It's the town. No, the housing authority. They're our monitoring
Okay,
agent.
it is the
Yeah,
housing authority.
yeah.
Okay.
Unless we switch to the NIMCOG model, 'cause I know
No.
NIMCOG's trying to do that, but at this point,
I
that's
didn't know if it was some
Yep.
somebody
no.
specific
This
to the
is what
town.
we have to
Okay.
submit because these are local initiative units as part of the development.
Okay, thank you.
This is not the housing authority units at the site. This is the ones that are in the Trammell Crow rental market unit mix.
So since I'm relatively new at this, how do they arrive at the decision that 6 of the
Oh, that
6
was
out
part of the
340
negotiations with the planning board as part of the permitting for the process years ago. Yep. As part of the.
And is there
as
any
part
sort
of
of
the-
formula? I'm just doing
No,
the
it
math
was
of
part of the
this.
negotiations between the planning board and the town, and ultimately went to town meeting approval for the rezoning of that site. And that included, again, they provided cash donations to the Chelmsford Public Schools. They also provided funding for traffic mitigation and so forth.
So we could do another project, not that we have space.
Yeah, we're
to
not
do
bound
another
by
300,
this
But we
precedent,
could do,
no.
we could say, hey, we want 10 or
Yes,
20.
exactly, yeah. Yeah, there's no formula.
Anybody have anything else? Questions, comments? And I'll take a motion then.
I'll make a motion that the select board approves the regulatory agreement for 255 Princeton Street as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik
Yes.
and Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 approved.
Great, thank you.
And next we have the select board approval of intermunicipal agreements with the towns of Tewksbury and Westford for shared seal of weights and measure services.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier in the budget review, when we were talking about the fees for the seal of weights and measures, for the last several years, the seal of weights and measures, which again are the scales and the fuel pump, gas pumps and the price scanners and so forth, was provided by NIMCOG under the Regional Planning Authority's agreement with the member towns. They have terminated that benefit and service. So what we've done is I've basically proposing to you for approval is an intermunicipal agreement where a shared sealer of weights and measures would provide the services for Chelmsford, Tewksbury, and Westford. And how it would be paid for is we based upon the fees that we looked at, what NIMCOG was charging us, and then brought it to what it would cost to do it ourselves, as well as the number of inspections that are per community. Chelmsford and Tewksbury are about the same, and Westford is slightly smaller. So Tewksbury would pay the town $20,000, Westford would pay us $30,000, Westford would pay us $25,000. We'd contribute our share that would come from the revenues, and then the full-time seal of weights and measures would be administered by the town of Chelmsford. And so this is basically an intermunicipal agreement between the member towns. This document is reviewed by council for each community, and has already been approved by the Westford Board of Selectmen and the Tewksbury Board of Selectmen. So now that their approval here, you're the final piece and leg of the stool to approve this intermunicipal agreement for a shared seal of weights and measures going forward.
So this is a flat rate, it's not gonna be per piece that we're charging
Right,
the other
exactly.
counties.
Yeah, it'd be flat rate. It will go basically to the end of the period, and then we'll continue to reassess the costs. But at this point, we've it's it's basically a known commodity in terms of the type of work that's done, and it's regulated and overseen and reported to the State Division of Standards. So in other words, the weighing, believe it or not, the weights and everything that you use, they had to bring them down to Ashland, Mass, and be certified, and so forth. And then all your
They had to
inspections.
seal the weights.
They had to seal, exactly, and then you go and do that. And again, the idea is for consumer protection. So that way, if you buy a gallon of gas, you're going to get a gallon of gas from the gas pump. Or it's also heating oil, and and if you go and get a scale at a deli, that the scale is accurate. And again, they also hear upon complaints, so they do the annual inspections and then respond to complaints.
So, what department will this person be under?
It's returning to where it had been previously before NIMCOG, which is the inspections department. So the position will be overseen by the building commissioner, and the sealer of weights and measures would basically work, depending upon the day of the week and schedule for the three towns. And obviously the seals and everything are separate, and actually the revenue handling is separate. So if the person's performing an inspection in Tewksbury, the person that they're inspected is going to get invoice and make payment to the town of Tewksbury. We're not going to be in the collections business. So only ones that we would collect and handle are Chelmsford.
So is that why this agreement is only has Tewksbury and
Right, and then
Chelmsford
there's
on
a-
it?
and
So
there's
then they have a
identical
separate
one-
with
there's identical
Westford and
one for
Tewksbury.
Westford, yeah,
But
exactly.
Tewksbury holds the
Yeah,
all the-
exactly.
yeah.
And so they provide a letter of appointment, as does Tewksbury for the individual, like we do, and then that's how it's certified by the state. So that's when you see those things, that's the person's name is on the little seal.
So this person will be full-time
Yes,
and under union or not?
non-union,
No,
no. There's no union in
And
the
just
inspections
one other
office.
minor thing, a
Yep.
minor typo.
Oops.
Number 1,
Yeah,
Chelmsford sealer of weights and measures.
yeah.
You see that?
Oh, okay, I'll correct that. Okay, yeah, I see it there, okay. Yeah, under paragraph 1, yeah.
Yep.
So Paul, NIMCOG's not providing this
Yeah.
anymore because were they trying to do too many? They couldn't find somebody like
They claim they couldn't find anybody. I mean, Pat's the rep to NIMCOG, and she may have her own opinions on this. I think they didn't want to do it anymore. Is my
Okay.
true personal opinion. They were having difficulty finding the person, but they didn't come to us and say, hey, should we bump up your fees? They basically said, we're not doing this anymore. So.
I mean, I like the idea of it because we don't have to employ a full-time person for a non-full-time job. So I think this will be an interesting process to go through, so I'd support it. I went through some of the clauses in here and decided that they're really not questions I had anymore about termination and all that. I think this is probably kind of boilerplate.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Anyone else have questions, comments? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the select board approve of the intermunicipal agreement with the towns of Tewksbury and Westford for shared sealer of weights and measures services as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron.
Yep.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed. All right, so next up we have the select board liaison assignments. So I am trying to remember how we went through these last year. I think we normally just go line by line.
You sure we want to do this tonight?
I don't know. That's a good question. Although we don't have much, I don't know.
We have a pretty.
I mean, what about your manager reports, Paul?
They're very brief.
Yeah, but I think we have a pretty lengthy executive
Yeah, but
session.
executive session
coming.
Will be long. I mean, so honestly, I've sent out emails and gone through and asked all of you what you kind of wanted to do.
You're the chair.
I don't know what next week looks like. Is
Yeah,
next week?
we'll have an executive, we'll have an agenda next week and an executive session, but it
Next
may
week-
not be as long as this.
We only have 2 articles to go over on the,
Yeah.
on the
So
warrant.
next week will be
Well,
pretty quick.
It'll
Can I
be-
make a suggestion, Aaron?
Yes.
Maybe just, if you, because I know you've talked to all of us about this, maybe
Yeah.
just go ahead and input what you've got so far for next week's discussion, and we can move on from this, and
I could do that. I can literally just read down and tell you who I'm proposing, and if anyone has any, we can finalize it next week. And if any of you have any comments or concerns, you can either reach out to me during the week, or we can just. Does that make sense? It'll be quick. Okay. So for the Agent-Friendly Implementation Committee, I was going to appoint Aaron Cunningham. The Agricultural Commission, I have Pat Wojcik. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, I have Pat Wojcik. The Board of Assessors, I have Aaron. The Board of Appeals, I have myself. The Board of Health, I have Aaron. Capital Planning, I have Pat Maloney. Jeff, I have you slated for the CCA Advisory Committee, the Cemetery Commission, and the Center Village Master Plan Implementation. I have myself here for the Chelmsford Public Schools. Chelmsford Telemedia, I have Pat Wojcik. The Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, I assigned myself. The Commission on Disabilities, I have Jeff Hardy here. Jeff, I also have you on the Conservation Commission. Aaron, I have you on the Council on Aging. The Cultural Council, I have Pat Wojcik. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, I have myself. The Finance Committee, I have Aaron. The Historic Commission and Historic District Commission, I have Pat Maloney. The Housing Authority and the Insurance Advisory, I have Pat Wojcik. The reps, I'd like to skip for a second and come back to if that's okay. The Library Trustees, I have Pat Wojcik. The Military Community Covenant Task Force, I have Pat Wojcik. The Neshoba Valley Technical High School, I have Pat Wojcik. The Parade Committee, I have Jeff Hardy. Permanent Building Committee, I have Pat Maloney. The Personnel Board, Pat Wojcik. The Planning Board, Aaron Cunningham. The Recycling Committee, Pat Wojcik. The Roberts Field Committee has been disbanded, from what I understand, so that's not. The Tree Committee, I have myself. The Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee, I have Aaron Cunningham. And then my suggestion for the water districts is to have Pat Maloney on North. Pat Wojcik, I would leave you on Center, and I would take East. The Community Preservation, under the voting member assignments, Community Preservation Committee, I have Pat Maloney. The Fire Station Study Committee is disbanded now.
Yep.
The Housing Advisory Board, I have myself. The LRTA, I have Pat Wojcik. And the Master Plan Implementation Committee, I have Jeff Hardy. And NEMCOG, I have Pat Wojcik as our longstanding NEMCOG member. Strategic Plan Steering Committee, I have Aaron. And the School Building Committee, I have Pat Maloney staying on there. And as far as our reps, the only ones that I'm a little bit open to the reps. So, I know that I'm a little bit open to the reps. I don't know if we want to move them around but I mean, maybe we can have that discussion next week, and that can be part of the discussion for next week, or if you have any other issues with what I've already kind of laid out. Or if anybody has ideas about what they want. I do have Jeff Hardy's name next to Representative Elliott here as a potential. I did want to suggest maybe Pat for Senator Barrett, if you want to if we want to move things around a little bit. Pat Maloney said he didn't mind staying with Arciero. but I'm pretty comfortable being wherever. I don't really mind. Aaron, do you have any preference? No? So Jeff, I'll leave you with Representative Elliott. Pat, do you have any preference?
Doesn't matter.
No? Okay. Okay, so I'll leave Pat Maloney with Rep. Arciero. Pat, I'll put you with Senator Barrett if that's okay. And I think looking at Simon Cataldo, I think we are all almost in Cataldo's district. So that was kind of a funny one because I said, but historically I feel like it's been me, but we're all in there. So so if it's okay, I'm going to move over to Lori Trahan, and I guess Aaron, I'll put you with Cataldo. Is that okay? Okay. So we can just leave those as suggestions, and if you guys have any comments or any suggestions or any complaints, I guess, you can reach out to me over the course of next week. And if not, we'll just approve this next week.
Well, I
Does that
would
make
just ask
sense?
then, I mean, everything looks fine to me. The NEMCOG has to be a vote of this board, so I mean, if we could do that tonight, so we don't have to worry about it anymore.
Is it just the NEMCOG?
Yes.
Yeah.
The NEMCOG is the only one that we have to vote on. Oh, okay. So we could do that now if you'd like. Okay.
Nice.
So we'll take a motion, I guess. Pat, can you make a motion just for the NEMCOG position?
I guess I'll make a motion to nominate, is that the right word? Pat Wojcik to be the representative to NIMCOG
Assign?
as presented.
Would it be are we assigning?
Yeah, appointing, yeah.
Appointing.
As a select board
Appointing.
representative to NEMCOG, yeah.
Appointing Pat Wojcik as the representative to NIMCOG.
I'll second.
Okay. And we're going to do a roll call vote. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm also an aye. So the motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Congratulations, Pat Wojcik, to another
you.
term as our NEMCOG representative.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Okay, so we'll put that on for next week also to just finalize, if that's okay, Paul?
Yep,
Okay.
we will.
Looks like it is, but
Okay, sounds good. Okay. And next we have our meeting schedule.
Yeah, again, I've drafted a meeting schedule for the remainder of this, basically board through next April's election. Again, it's not written in stone because I know people have vacations and things come up, but this is also gives the new members an overview of like what's ahead in the months ahead of us. So, so if the board has no objections, again, we can table it for a next meeting, but like I said, where we're going out of tonight is we're meeting next Monday night, and then we're off for what could be 3 sessions or 2 weeks of town meeting after the Patriots' Day holiday, and then coming back here on May 12th.
So
But we can change these as the time goes on, but the more immediate ones we have to schedule as we're scheduling licensing and permitting hearings and so forth. But this can all be changed as your vacation plans and summer plans and other things arise.
It's already in my calendar. Don't change it.
Are these are all things that occurred during the select board meeting?
Yeah.
That's why they're all on Mondays?
Yeah, they're just sort of highlights it. There'll be a lot of other things going on, but these are sort of what I foresee is what's going to happen.
Well, and I feel like where it's not every other week, that's where Paul's kind of strategically bumped things up a week or forward a week because of deadlines and town meeting.
So you have June 16th as a municipal open house, but it's not.
Right, I'm sorry, yeah, I should
But
scratch
it's just
that,
a
yeah.
regular meeting.
Yeah, it's a regular meeting, yep. Yep.
So I think I had a comment here about May 12th and the 19th.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering why we didn't just combine them, but I think that's probably because.
Well, because we're going to come out of going 3 weeks without a meeting, almost a month.
But
Because
aren't
think about it,
we-
we're going to go from April 14th to May 12th. which
Because
is
we have
four-
town meeting on the
town meeting.
28th.
So you're basically going four weeks.
And then we don't have a meeting on the 5th.
Right, because that could be the third session of spring town meeting.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's why we do that. And and then the idea is you then got Memorial Day at the end of the month, so you're trying to avoid that. So the idea would be, if possible, we could spread it out over 2 meetings as opposed to having a marathon, only 1 meeting in a month. And then the problem would be, because of Memorial Day, you wouldn't be meeting till June 2nd. So that's the
I had it
problem.
I had it in my phone for the 5th and the 19th.
Yeah.
So I
No,
have
it'd be the
like,
12th and the 19th.
so I
yeah.
have a little bit of a conflict on the 12th just because I wasn't planning that, but but I understand what you're saying about town meeting.
I think generally I have one conflict date I just couldn't make, and then one I could do remotely. Other than that, I've put them all on my calendar already.
Okay.
I can't believe I'm planning to 2026 now.
I know August I have a conflict, but I can come in remotely. It's not a problem.
We don't have to vote or anything on this, right? It's just
No, it just helps us to, with the planning, and putting it up there.
Does anybody have anything else on this? No? Okay, so next up we have the town manager bid awards.
Yeah, real quick, we have 2 bid awards pertaining to DPW. One is for tree planting, and the four bids were received. The lowest responsible bidder was Cassidy Landscaping of Woburn, Mass. in the amount of $44,550. And then the second one is for the ADA compliant pedestrian ramps that are, again, part of the DPW's road and sidewalk. And there were 5 bids received, and the lowest bid was Tasco Construction of Belmont in the amount of $69,025. So again, seek your confirmation of these 2 bid awards.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? No? Okay, I'll take a motion, Pat, if you're ready.
I'll make a motion that the select board recommend Cassidy Landscaping as the low bidder for the 2025 tree planting project as presented.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an yes. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
I'll make a motion that we award Tasco Construction as the low bidder for the ADA compliant pedestrian ramps as presented.
Give me a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
And Pat Maloney?
Aye.
And Jeff?
Yes.
And Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. The motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you.
And next up, we have town manager reports.
Yeah, real quick, just wanted to let the board know, at your next meeting next Monday, you'll be receiving a presentation from Barry Dunn, the consultant on the strategic plan, and just giving you sort of the outline of that. And then the idea would be, as at town meeting, there'd be a very short presentation to inform the town meeting members that the strategic plan is completed, and that the work will, move from then on to implementation. So that's that item. The next item is the National Grid financial statement. As I mentioned earlier, under the underground utility project, we received the monthly statement, and as you can see in their detail, there's roughly $4 million available under the surcharge, which is why the board suspended it. No additional need for monies to come in, and then hope that should meet the next phase of the project. And then finally, since our last meeting on April 1st, we received notice from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Administration and Finance and the Lieutenant Governors that the town of Chelmsford has been awarded a Community Compact Cabinet Information Technology Grant in the amount of $100,500. This grant was produced out of the town clerk's office, and Harrison Mayotte, who is the sort of the grant writer in the office, pulled this together, and this is going to help with our archiving and digitization of storage records. So again, want to thank the clerk's office and thank Harrison for their work in obtaining these grant monies for the town. That's my report this evening, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have appointments. So
I have a question about these applications for the diversity. Were they told they could come and talk to us?
No, I don't know how the board wanted to handle it. That was how we did it the first time. If you want, I can invite all 4 of them to come to next Monday night.
I thought that
did.
whenever we had more than seats.
Okay, so we can invite
had them come in.
So
and
from what
make
I understand, one of them is withdrawn. Caitlin.
No, that was 5. Now there's 4. I think.
Okay, so now there's 4. Yeah, so this first one that's in here, Caitlin, is withdrawn.
So if you want, I can invite the 4 of them to come to your meeting next Monday night.
I think so, because I really don't know
How many
them.
positions are available?
Makes sense.
2. 2. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll invite
I mean,
them.
I only know one of them, so.
Okay.
I think that.
All right. We'll
would-
table that till next meeting.
Okay.
Right. And then the only appointment that I have in my realm is to the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee. This person named Virginia Crocker Timmons is seeking to be
Does anybody know
appointed.
anything about her?
And then next week, you're going to get an application from Mike Walsh to join the committee as well, former planning board member. So I'm seeking your confirmation of appointing Virginia to the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee for a term ending June 30th, 2028. Also for the Council on Aging, Craig Bonacito for an expert term ending June 30th, 26, and for the CCA Town Hall Advisory Committee, Eliza Duggan for a term ending 6/30/25.
Okay. And can we
I'll make a
approve these
motion that
together? You can do these together, Pat.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the town manager's appointments as presented.
I'll second.
All right, Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. The motion passes. 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Okay. And we are up to meeting minutes. So we have some meeting minutes here from March 24th. Does anyone have any comments? Corrections?
Just one thing to kind of make it more formal, I should have caught this, but I didn't. On page 4, the second to last paragraph says, Ms. Timmons thanked board members. I normally would have changed that to say, Board Member Timmons. I think it's more, as I said, more formal.
Okay. How did these oh, we just approve them as amended.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
I'll make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes of March 24th, 2025 as amended.
Great. Second?
I wasn't there, so I have to abstain.
Oh, yeah, you guys can second.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Pat. And then, I guess if they're saying, is it
Abstain,
just
yeah.
3 of us voting?
Yep, that's
Okay, so
majority,
Pat, how
yep.
do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Okay, and I'm also an aye, so the minutes are approved. The motion passes 5-0.
3-0.
3-0.
Oh, sorry,
3-0,
3-0
2 abstentions.
with 2 abstentions. Thank you. Okay, so next we are up to select board member liaison reports and referrals. You do not have liaison committees yet, so or if you have any other reports or referrals about anything, I guess you're welcome
I
to.
can tell you, the other day I spoke to the director of the Concord 250th celebration, the treasurer, and they're playing a drone show as we've discussed. I'm going to try to get the information from them so we can bring it to the parade committee.
Okay. That's interesting. Aaron, you don't have anything? All right, Pat Maloney?
Yeah, just got a couple of things. Most recently, there's been a subcommittee of the school building committee to select an owner's project manager for the feasibility study for the replacement or renovation of Parker Middle School. And the subcommittee has selected somebody, so Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, there will be a school building committee at Central Admin, and we will get a full board vote to approve Left Field LLC as the OPM for the feasibility study for Parker Middle School, and amongst a few other things. And then again, the SBC, the School Building Committee, will be meeting on the 24th, where we will actually bring in Left Field, and they will start to show their wares. And once we get approval from MSBA on all of this, then they're on board, and we start the architect selection process, which we hope to have done maybe by the end of the summer. Might be a little wishful thinking, but we're being very aggressive. So we're really off to the races on this stuff. We now have an OPM. We think we got the right people with great marketing experience and so on. So really excited to get out there and start getting the word out and getting the work done. So that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, Pat, on that, I can bring that contract approval to the select board next Monday night as a manager bid award, and then we can have a little more discussion at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat Wojcik?
Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, anybody watching tonight probably notices a few differences at this table, so congratulations to Erin Drew, our new chair, Pat Maloney, our new vice chair, and Erin Cunningham, our new clerk. And we did have an election last week, so congratulations to all newly elected and re-elected officials.
Thank you, Pat.
And I just want to mention, later this month, the author of the library's one book, the one book for this year, as you probably recall, is Master, Slave, Husband, Wife by Elian Wu, and the author will be in Chelmsford at the library on April 17th at 6 p.m. If you want to join in person, registration is required, and when I looked today, there are only 9 seats left, so if you're interested, if you've read the book and you're interested in meeting the author, April 17th at 6 p.m. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we are going to go
I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation regarding the Ledge Road commercial trucking complaint, as well as to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the following employee labor unions: Chelmsford Police Commanding Officers Association, NEPBA Local 6, Chelmsford Police Superior Officers Association, NEPBA Local 20, Chelmsford Police Patrol Officers Association, FOP Lodge 110, Chelmsford Public Safety Dispatchers Association, AFS CME Council 93, and International Association of Firefighters Local 1839, Library Employees AFT Local 3569, and also for approval of executive session meeting minutes of December 23rd, 2024 and January 6th, 2025, not to return.
Paul, do we have to make a
Yeah, just
declaration
beca- yeah,
about
just
why
be-
the?
yeah,
and
because-
just
yeah.
to clarify that the meeting is being held in executive session because an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town.
Right. Roll call.
And I do need a second for Pat's motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. And with that, we are
Okay.
adjourned. Thank you.
Gary.
We'll see you over there.